So going right into it, you know what? You, individually, your background. I mean, you were embedded into the industry. Everybody knows you. From a distributor to the supplier side, everybody knows you. But where does it come from? We all come from someplace else. Mm-hmm. Nobody was, unless were you the one who was born into this industry?
So born into the industry? Kind of. So what's interesting about it is how I got started with Sage was there was a friend of mine who his wife was doing the payroll for our data entry team at the time. This was, again, 17 years ago, and said that, hey, there's a sales position open at this company. I think it might be something, that you would like. There's a young, vibrant company, seemed to be growing. And I said, okay, I'll take a look at it. So I went in and interviewed, and I really liked everything about it, like the culture and everybody that was there. And then, so I went home and I decided to, take this job. And so I called up my mom and I said, hey, I really like this company, but it sounds an awful lot like, something that you might use in your world. And she goes, oh, well, what's the name of the company? I said, well, it's a software company. And I said, it's a company called Sage. And she goes, oh, I use that every day. So long and short of it is my mom was actually a print and promo distributor for, 40 years. And so it was really, in the fact that she gave her endorsement and she used the program all the time was pretty easy to say yes, to like, all right, let's try this out. So, and again, 17 years later, still with the same company.
Well, and that's, okay, so how does that happen? Because we also know inside of the market, come on, it's, I've got 3 other stops on my resume, mm-hmm. right? Ian's got 3-4 other stops, every single one of the reps that are in there. How do you have, for 17 years, 1 stop? Especially when people are headhunting.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, and my first answer is it's not the same company. So the company that it was 17 years ago is not the same company that it is now, and the job is not the same job that it was 17 years ago either. And so a lot of times we do take a lot of pride in the fact, if you look at the tenure of a lot of the people at our company, there's a lot of 5-year, 10-year, 15-year people, more so than most big companies that are out there. And the reason I think, or we hope, is that we take care of everyone, as well as we can. We're competitive from, pay scale perspective, but we also listen and value the feedback of our employees. And then the last piece of it, which I think is where a lot of people, at least for me, really, it's the evolution or the innovation that's come along with it. So again, like I said, the company that it was is not even remotely close. And I mean, we've had products that we sold, that we got rid of, and that some things that didn't work, and some things that worked fantastic, some deals that we've made that, for instance, the, Power of Two relationship that we have with mm-hmm. PPI, that was completely, launched the company as a whole. But I've watched people, especially that have either say they were in a position where they were maybe struggling a little bit, but we saw value in the talents that they had, that have changed completely their job function that they were hired for, and then moved to a different division, and then now they're like running that division, 10 years later. So it's being able to like really look at people and people's talents and then say, hey, well, maybe you may not work exactly well for this, but I think you can fit here a little better and you can thrive. So it's that kind of thing that I think has been great for the company.
So, but is that the personal drive to continue? The aspect that it's like, because it's cool. The idea that says the company you started with 17 years ago has evolved in and of itself. Mm-hmm. Is that the drive, the interest to see what it's going to become tomorrow?
It's the drive of you being able to be a part of it.
Okay.
So like you empower people, and I do feel like, some of the things that I've been a part of have made it to the drawing board. So there's a lot of ideas that have come about, not just me, but everybody at the company that have made the company what it is today. So when you're a part of something and you can see it happening over the years, then you're vested in a variety of ways. But it's really cool to see that. And again, your own career, your own position. People change positions all the time, depending on what they're trying to do with their lives or in general. And or just the growth of their managerial skills or whatever that could come about with it, or their technical skills, or all of those things all play into it. So it's it's also a great thing to, whenever there's somebody new that comes with the company, to be able to say to them, hey, this is the way our corporate culture works. And it gives people a sense of like warmth, I guess, or hominess to say, you know, there's opportunity here, you know, and if you just stick with it, and you'll never be bored. You're never going to want to look for other things necessarily, because you have plenty of different angles that you can move within the company as you want to, right? And times change, and like their situations may change. They may need to move, or they decide to have children, or things like that. They may change the way that they're wanting to do things within the company. And we always look and say, okay, now that your situation has changed, what can we do to help facilitate that? So it's a great company to work for all of those reasons. And it just depends on the person themselves which one fits that particular mold.
Okay, so 17 years. Come in on a sales side. So regardless of the evolution, there's still a little bit of that sales guy that still lives down inside there.
Oh yeah.
Right? We also know our market, right? We're serving distributors. It isn't easy to come in. What was it originally? Was it always a software sell? Or were there, yeah.
I mean, we had, right when I first started, there were still the DVDs. So we'd have DVDs that we'd mail out. We also had the data book. Oh my gosh, the data book was the hard copy phone book of just supplier listings that we'd sell. And we sold that for years. And then we even sold it when we didn't really sell it. Meaning there was those 10 to 15 customers that just, they wanted it every year, and all right, I guess we'll sell you one, even though it's the most antiquated thing on the planet. But
and so it's not easy at that point in time. That's where we start pulling these guys into a software, pulling these guys in some cases over into that's a hard sell in a lot of cases when you have an established industry that it's like, well, I got a way I want to do it, right? So, but it worked. I mean, the industry had to move. We had to move into the digital side, right? So the question then is, okay, what's the next hard sell we have to support those distributors?
I think the hard sell is the digital transformation. I know that's big with PPAI right now, and I think just as the industry as a whole is trying to get better from an industry perspective on, like, we lag quite a bit. And I mean, we, even as a company, there are things that we have on the drawing board that we have to like hold off on because the industry is not, quote unquote, ready for it. It's just, that's not going to be something that people are ready to consume or ready to integrate into their part of their daily life in general, especially when you're talking about, we have to support the entire industry as a whole. And a lot of that has to do, again, with our relationship with PPAI. So we can't just cater to the big, huge distributorships out there, or the big, huge, suppliers with, 15 different lines that they have. So you gotta get even the small guy that's literally, running out of his garage. So to be able to service all of those needs and to give everyone sense of a level playing field is a delicate task. So that way everybody they do have the proper tools to be able to run their business that are the same, depending on where you are and the size of your business and the scale and that sort of thing. So to answer your question, going back to to what's the next big thing, or the evolution, or I guess what was the term you said, the next big?
Yeah, it's the next big hard sell.
Hard sell. I think it's going to be a hard sell to get everybody to really streamline the order process in general. I think the industry needs to evolve. I think that we've made it so complex for a variety of reasons that honestly, like, if we're going to try and compete with the new world, and I know we hate saying the word Amazon-like experience, but if our customer base, the ultimate end user in this whole thing is if that's what they're demanding is an end-to-end sale where they can get it in 3 days, how do we, which I know is, an impossible task, but how do we even remotely get to something that's even feasible? And the first thing is, you're never going to get there if the end user doesn't even know what selections to even make on their side of the fence. So if they don't know what a setup charge is, they don't know what additional color runs are, or any of that kind of stuff, then how in the world are we going to make it automated all the way through the entire order cycle? So I think we need to eliminate a lot of that and it starts with the supplier side of creating frictionless options, and which is actually, from the pandemic perspective, I think that's going to actually help the cause a little bit, which we were discussing earlier as far as like the number of SKUs that are going to be available. I think is going to help streamline things. So I think that was another issue that, when you have one product that has 15 colors, and then it has 15 different options with it, whether or not you want this particular lid to go with it, or you want it to come in this particular case, or whatever it could be, less is sometimes more in a lot of cases, and customers don't care. They would rather have 2 options that can get to them in 2 days than 15 options that's going to take 3 months. So I think that a lot of that's going to end up kind of shaking itself out, and I do think that the customer base is willing to make that sacrifice for lack of options for the speed and the logistics piece
and the
of
convenience
it.
side
The
of it.
convenience, yes.
So now Sage, right? Segue a little bit away from Jared Thorndike. Sage, right? Look, one of the things I always respected, always loved, even back in when I first entered the industry, was that this is this scrappy little, almost like a startup, still had a startup idea or a startup approach to the way that the mindset was, right? It was willing to go out there, it was willing to fight for its position in the marketplace. How did those early days of having to be a scrappy company define who it is today?
I think because a lot of it is it was spurred from our culture, our company culture, of one, we always wanted to do the right thing, and we are known for our customer service. You can have a product that may not, and that's one thing that we've always talked about, is like there's one thing that you can always control in any business is your customer service, how you treat people. And sometimes we do it to a fault, and sometimes people would take advantage of us for that reason. But we'd rather have it on that side of the fence and always have people say that, this is a good company. Because at the end of the day, people do business with people that they admire and that they have integrity in general. So that's been the foundation of it. And you kind of just like anybody likes the underdog kind of story, in general. But and a lot of it is the grassroots scenario. We'd go to trade shows and we'd just work it, and we'd say, okay, this is our product that we offer, and we'd take the feedback, truly take the feedback from our customers and say, it would be cool, I like this, but it would be cool if it could do this. And we'd write those notes back then on the back of a business card before we had lead retrieval, and then we'd take it back and then we'd, put it through the pipeline. And then now it's actually gotten so sophisticated that when people actually do submit, great ideas, when they do finally make the next release of whatever it is, we actually notify the customer, hey, by the way, your particular idea is now in this new release. So we really do take that to heart as far as like trying to get feedback from our customer base and really listen to what they're asking for and what they're needing in general. And I think that's been actually the strong suit. Instead of trying to force feed something down somebody's throat, is actually let them tell us what they need.
So then, okay, so if ultimately the scrappy fighting approach is to stay focused on the client you serve, those distributors you serve, is that the same, is that how you make the transition? I mean, you guys obviously have. I mean, you've gone from like the scrappy little guy who's quote unquote, it's standing in the shadow of a gorilla, right? To all of a sudden, an established, it is the established entity to a marketplace. Is the focus what lets you make the transition?
The focus never changed.
Yeah.
And so you say the transition, like in our eyes, there is no transition. We're always going to be considered that, or in our minds, we're always going to be that company that is trying to build new technologies and advance with our customers as they need those things. So we still don't, we obviously recognize that, the clout that we now have. And again, a lot of that really does, and you're saying like, hey, when did that happen? I guess realistically is when we did the Power of Two relationship with PPAI. Obviously that launched a huge leap forward within both of our organizations. Obviously, between, PPAI, their growth spiked, and as well as then obviously ours. So then there was also the responsibility at that point is to make sure that we were doing the things that were necessary for the industry as the industry provider of technology. So then you have that again, that responsibility that goes along with it to serve every distributor member with our technology and tools. And that we didn't take that lightly. And I remember when that happened, when I first learned about it, and I remember our president said, came to me and he goes, "Hey, I think this is actually going to happen. What do you need as far as resources?" And I was like, "I'm going to need triple the sales staff." I mean, it's like, "And how much time do we have?" "Well, you've got like 6 months." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So it was quite the undertaking. But I also knew real quick is you get one shot at doing this, and one shot only. So we did everything that we could to make sure that we were able to pull it off with a little bit of hiccups, but nothing that made it seem like it was an issue of any sort.
Well, and it's funny because I don't, we look at it now, right? Everybody forgets looking at it from the moment, right? You look at it now, screaming success. I mean, it's power of two. It's everything. It makes sense.
Right.
Now.
Yeah, now. Yeah.
Back then, I've talked to Ian about this, where they call it a Hail Mary because it's your last ditch thing right before everything falls apart at the end of a game. Sage is a company that has seemingly been totally cool with calling that Hail Mary pass route in the second quarter. Right? It wasn't a last ditch. This was, wait a minute, there was a lot of risk to the decision. And Sage has been a company that's been willing to make decisions that had risk embedded to it.
For sure.
And it wasn't a last ditch. This is our last chance to survive a something.
No.
So what's the North Star that guides the company to make it comfortable making genuinely for a company, for an established entity, to make a genuine risky decision when you don't need to?
Well, you do need to, or you die on the vine. So, but it's calculated. It's very thoughtful, very calculated, and we do have a extremely diverse executive team with, when I say diverse, I mean diverse in every aspect of it, and a very diverse set of opinions that go along with it. And we don't usually agree on a lot of things, but that's the best part about it, is because you're like, all right, what could go wrong? And like, well, then what are the benefits and all? So you get all of those things that determine whether or not it's something that we want to look into or something that we want to pursue. And there's countless things that we have decided that are not worth it, right? In general. And make no mistake, we've made plenty of mistakes along the way. So, I mean, there's plenty of illustrations of that I'm not going to get into, but, but we always try to do the right thing, and then we learn from any of those mistakes, and hopefully, most of those are things that, well, obviously we've been able to recover from, but we're not infallible by any stretch. But unless you're actually pushing yourself, then what's the point? And you'll get passed by in a heartbeat. And now it's getting faster and faster, so you have to be able to keep moving the needle. I mean, you just have to, for good or for bad. But at least you got to put it out there. So
then, what's the vision of the future? What's the tomorrow image that Sage sees?
I think it's continuing to evolve the technologies to again move the industry forward. I know we keep saying the word digital transformation, but I think that is key. I think that we've got to, we can always make our tools better, like as far as frictionless, and we can make, the bells and whistles and buttons and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's the other bigger ideas of the integration aspect of the data piece of it, to then even big data aspects of things that we can leverage from, or our customers can actually leverage with, what are the trends? What is happening in the industry? What are the buying habits of our buyers? That's some of the things that are the bigger companies, not in our industry, but that they're able to take advantage of. So you've got to look for all those things and that can help our industry move forward as a whole, and get away from just the traditional model of, presenting a product. We've got to get away from a product to then, and then, you know, it's a new trend of, and I hate to say trend, but, you know, the, you know, corporate social responsibility, which we just earlier today had a session on that. But, you know, those are the types of things that we've got to integrate into our industry as a whole, because the world is. And so again, if we don't evolve with that, then and then using technology as a medium for that, then we're going to get left behind. So you know, it's a delicate balance, right, of all of those things.
Well, and we've got an industry, we've got way too many of our distributors in some cases that are running their business off of the way they feel, right? You mentioned the big data, you mentioned the data information and everything else. I feel like this is my primary client because I deal a lot with them, focus, but without really seeing the data, I don't know who my actual biggest client is over here. This is the one I feel like it is. Mm-hmm. And not knowing what are the products that client, my biggest actual client, is buying. Those challenges, ultimately that data portion drives those guys better serving their actual clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough because, I mean, a lot of times we'll come out with things, or here's an example of this, is you'll have, like say we have a CRM module that's part of our, you know, total access platform, and you'll have a customer that says, okay, great, well, I have a database of clients, but it's all just trash. Like, I don't know, I haven't culled it out in forever. I don't even know, you know, this person even works there anymore or anything like that. So they have no idea of anything. So then they don't leverage it because they haven't taken the time to even stop to get anything cleaned up. So then it causes paralysis. And a lot of time I call it data paralysis, because they're like, I don't want to this is a really cool tool, but I don't want to muddy it up with the stuff that I've always done. Same thing from like back office systems, like ERP solutions that are out there that are very antiquated, and they're like, I can't move because I don't know how to move. I've just had it, and I know it's clunky, and I know it's completely out of date, but how do you go about doing that? And so those are hurdles that a lot of small distributorships, all the way up to the biggest distributors, are all going through, where they're spending millions of dollars on all this, trying to figure out what the next thing is, and from a back office perspective. So there's, I guess the point is, on that side of things, is that it's the same problems no matter how big you are and how small you are. Is everybody's going through the same issues, whether it's the technology aspect or the back office aspect. But then the main constant is obviously trying to serve our customer base with innovative and creative mediums of using promotional products as that medium. So,
well, and okay, so the questions on that thing are done, but man, I'm going to say the one answer to the why you call the Hail Mary, that was dope. That was actually a great answer. It was, but genuinely and honestly, just for me, and I'm going to steal one specific moment, just to say thank you.
Yeah,
genuinely and sincerely. I've known you now for a long time. I've respected you from day number one that I met you, which I think was at an I Promote You event.
I think so. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I genuinely, I think you're one of the smartest guys I've ever met in this industry.
Wow.
And I love the approach, your thought approach. And at the end of the day, you're guiding a company with the focus on meeting the needs of a distributor, and it's something I've respected from the moment. And I needed to make sure I had a chance to verbalize that. So genuinely and honestly, thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, truly, I do. And likewise, obviously, like, we've had a million conversations, and they go on for forever, just because we've got different ideas of the way things are, and the way, you know, the mechanics of the industry as a whole, and what people should do. And, you know, sometimes they're crazy ideas, but sometimes they're viable and they need to move forward. And it's, how do we make that happen kind of conversation. So, and if you're not having those with other people that are like-minded or that are in complete opposition of, then you're never going to grow, and the industry's never going to move forward. And you at least have to pose the questions, or at least define the questions, you know, in general. And I think a lot of times people don't do that. I mean, so yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to at least sometimes even flush out the ideas, you know, so which is great. So I appreciate your friendship over these years too, and obviously look forward to, you know, many more.
Yeah, there's a couple more years then.
Yeah.